Waste is always something to be eliminated.
This is Stepping Up Healthcare. Your host is Tack, and the mission is simple. Build your capability and curiosity to make healthcare better.
In process improvement, we tend to sort work or tasks or actions into 3 buckets: value add, non-value add, and waste. But before we even define these, there's a question at the center of this that we need to answer. Who is our customer? The reason why this is critical is because the customer is the one that decides what is value. This is what will anchor our answers to as we label tasks as value add, necessary non-value add, and waste. In healthcare, the primary customer is the patient. Plain and simple. Not the department, not that specific metric on a scorecard we're trying to hit, not some form. So when we say value, we mean value from the patient's point of view. In healthcare, the patient is always the customer, regardless what role you're in. Whether you're a doctor, a nurse, administrator, EVS technician, your job ultimately supports the well-being and healing of the patients. Even if your role is indirect, as in you don't provide direct patient care, like IT or billing, your work still impacts the patient. For instance, seamless billing ensures patients aren't frustrated with unexpected charges, and efficient IT systems help doctors access critical patient data quickly, improving care outcomes. Now, you do have internal customers too. If the patient is the primary, these would be the secondary. Back in the day, I used to do data analytics for a hospital system. I had a regular set of reports that I'd run, that I'd send to the director of surgery and the CMO. They were my internal customers. Still, ultimately, the patient was my customer, as the director and CMO could make informed decisions on how best to serve our patients and community. Now, depending on how deep you want to go, most every action you have has a customer and supplier in it. It's that product or service that changes. A silly, trivial example is 2 people interacting with each other. One says, "Hey, I need to borrow your pen." The other person says, "You bet, here you go." Silly example, but one person, the individual asking for the pen, is the customer. The person who has the pen is the supplier. Another example would be asking the time of somebody. "What time is it?" "It's 4:30. As simple as those examples are, that has a customer and supplier interaction. So let's break down value add. Value add work is the work that directly helps the patient or what the patient would be willing to pay for. It changes their condition, their understanding, or their experience of care. You may hear that it changes the fit, form, or function. Fit is like how well a treatment or service matches a patient's specific needs, like tailoring a treatment plan based on that patient. Form is about making things more comfortable or easier to understand, like redesigning forms or creating clearer instructions in the AVS. Function is about making the work smooth, like improving how quickly test results are posted, or streamlining appointment scheduling so patients don't have to wait as long. Now let's define non-value add. Non-value add work doesn't help the patient directly, but the system still requires it. You may also hear it called by a couple different monikers: necessary waste, business value add, necessary non-value add. Think compliance steps, documentation, or handoffs that exist to manage risk or coordination. I despise annual training for multiple reasons, which maybe that would be a whole episode by itself. but it's something that we need to do for regulatory and legal reasons. The patient doesn't want to pay for us to go through those trainings, but we have to do it in order to keep the doors open. Now let's define waste. Waste is work that helps no one and the patient is not willing to pay for it. You may sometimes hear it called by the Japanese word muda, M-U-D-A. It consumes time, energy, and attention and gives nothing back. We have 8 wastes in total, and they have an acronym, DOWNTIME. That's D-O-W-N-T-I-M-E. Defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, extra processing. You may hear other people use different words or switch around some of the words in the downtime acronym, but the acronym and the 8 wastes are still good and are still the same. The next couple episodes, we're actually going to break down each of the 8.
Why does it matter?
Quite simply, because waste doesn't just slow things down, it generally complicates the work. For every step, workaround, or recheck, that adds friction to the workflow. Not necessarily in one dramatic moment, but often quietly and over time. When we don't distinguish between value add, non-value add, and waste, 4 things happen. Number 1, the work takes longer than it should, even when no one is slacking. Now, I don't need to harp on the fact that decisions and actions sometimes happen very quickly in healthcare. And the work should be simplified in order to help us make those decisions quickly. The system should work for us, not us working for the system. Number 2, complicates the work. So in tandem with the last point of the system working for us, and we need to make sure that we simplify things, we don't want the work to be overly complicated. So that means not including more people in the process than need to be. Also, we need to minimize the checks and rechecks that have to happen that bog down the process. Number 3, attention fractures. Breaking our attention with more interruptions doesn't help the work. Having to come back and refocus on what we were doing after being distracted really hurts our work and really adds opportunity for things to go wrong. Number 4, or the culmination of all 3 of these, or all 4 together, burnout. Most healthcare staff aren't burned out from caring for patients. They're burned out from navigating unnecessarily complicated systems around the care. When waste accumulates, work becomes harder without becoming more meaningful. So those 4 again. Number 1, work takes longer than it should. Number 2, work is more complicated. Number 3, attention fractures. And then number 4, burnout.
Let's talk about some real-world examples.
So let's play a little game here. We're going to have a couple of multiple choice answers here. The answers are either value add, non-value add, or waste. You answer what you think the task is of those 3. So starting with the first one, a nurse administering medication. Is that value add, non-value add, or waste? If you answered value add, you got it right. It is a value add activity. The patient is willing to pay for it. Now, number 2, that same nurse documenting that the administration was done in the EMR. Is that value add, non-value add, or waste? That's actually non-value add. That is not something the patient is necessarily concerned about or willing for us to do. It is something we need to do, but not something the patient is willing to pay for. Now let's picture the nurse needing to log out of one system, log into another, and re-enter the same information because the systems don't talk to each other. Is that value add, non-value add, or waste? That's waste. Insurance verification. How would you define that task? I would say necessary non-value add. stockpiling more supplies than needed. Which one is that? That is 100% waste. Now, how did you do? Either way, let's talk through just a couple more examples, just in case. Consider a diagnostic test. Ordering the test and explaining it to the patient, that's value add. Completing the required order entry fields, non-value add. Calling the lab to ask whether the order actually went through because the status isn't visible, that's waste. We have the same intent, the same people, different types of work. So let's dive in just a little bit more. In improvement work, we're trying to do 3 things at the same time. We're trying to eliminate waste, minimize non-value added work, and maximize value add work. Not everything can disappear. Some non-value added work is real and required. But waste is always something to be eliminated. Once you can see these categories clearly, those waste stop feeling abstract.
Homework time.
All right, this week, pick one process you touch every day in your role. As you move through it, quietly sort out the work between value add, non-value add, and waste. Think about writing it down. Start with the actions while you're moving through it, and then later tag them as value add, non-value add, or waste. Just notice where the time stretches and where your attention gets pulled. This episode sets the foundation for the next 8 episodes. We'll be walking through each of those 8 wastes over the next 8 episodes and doing that deep dive into each. That's all I got for you today. Our next episode is about defects, the D in our downtime acronym. I'm Tack. You're appreciated. Let's step up healthcare.